Dollars in federal spending cuts beginning to take effect. And a Fox News poll reveals 57% of voters say the only way to control the deficit through automatic spending cuts. Very little trust in Congress getting it done on its own. And Peter Schiff is the CEO of Europe Pacific Capital, joins us from Stamford, Connecticut today. What do you make of that, Peter, that people look at this and say, well, I don't know, maybe it's not perfect, but it's the only way we're going to cut spending?
Yeah, well, I think so far, I mean, the problem is these cuts aren't large enough. You know, cutting government spending is good for the economy, it's good for the dollar, but these cuts are trivial. Maybe it's symbolic, but it's not enough to really make a difference. And unfortunately, I think these trivial cuts are going to be more than offset by other increases in government spending that are going to take place throughout the year that are going to dwarf these, minuscule cuts that are part of the sequester.
You mentioned the dollar, and I want to talk to you about that in a moment. But just to look at the stock market for just a second before we do that. We mentioned a second ago, and Stuart Varney was wrapping up his show, how close we are now to this all-time high in the stock market. The Dow's at 14,081, so less than 100 points. 14,164 is the all-time high. What to make of this kind of collective stock market yawn at all the budget talk in D.C.? What do you make of that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, if you adjust the stock market for inflation, we're nowhere near a record high, especially if you use a real barometer, not the CPI. But look, I think the market is missing the boat, missing the point, rather, just like they did in 2007, the last time we were this high. When we were right, around the corner was a financial crisis. I think stock market investors are really oblivious to the problems. They think they've been solved. They think the Fed has an exit strategy that's credible. It doesn't. I think we're still headed for a worse economic crisis than the one that we had in '07. But, I think the real damage is not going to be in the stock market. It's going to be in the bond market.
Okay, we can talk about that, but that's obviously, and you're known for strong language, but that's pretty strong language saying we're headed for a worse crisis that's worse than what we went through '07, '08. What do you mean by that? What would it look like?
Well, I think we're going to have a dollar crisis, even though the dollar is strengthening right now against some of the other fiat currencies. Right. I think you're going to have a collapse in the dollar. I think you're going to have a huge spike in interest rates. And I think our whole economy, which is built on the foundation of cheap money, is going to topple when you pull the rug out from under it.
And I don't mean by the day, but when. I mean, is this something that, we could be talking about? You could be coming on for years and then eventually say, oh, yeah, Peter, you were right. Or is it something that's, hey, imminent at this point in your view?
Yeah, it could be years. I don't think it's going to be decades. I mean, I don't think Obama is going to finish his second term without the bottom dropping out. So I think the crisis is imminent. It doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow, but I think it's building. And I think I'm more confident of this call than I was about the call I made regarding the housing bubble and the financial crisis. And I think this should be even more obvious. What's amazing to me is the same people that missed the last crisis are oblivious to this one. They've learned nothing from their past mistakes. They just keep on repeating them.
Before the end of a second Obama term. That's the prediction. Peter Schiff.